We are here with Lee Richter, who I affectionately refer to as the Madonna of business. She is always reinventing herself, always has cool stuff to say. This woman has so many accomplishments. I wanted to make sure I had her bio in front of me when I was introducing her. So Lee is an award-winning global leader, visionary, and thought leader. She's recognized for being one of San Francisco's top 100 women business leaders 7 years in a row, and top 100 fastest growing businesses in the Bay Area for 3 years running. She's been an entrepreneur since the 1990s. She has built and sold several multi-million-dollar companies. She's a #1 best-selling author. And Lee really utilizes her superpower in public relations to connect to the business world with the future of business and marketing. So she's inspiring entrepreneurs everywhere to realize the importance of NFTs, blockchain, and empowers them to develop and implement these strategies in their company. She teaches globally. Just in the short time, in these past 3 weeks, I believe, she's probably been in 6 different cities, speaking on stages about all different types of things. Lee, thank you so much for being here.
It is my pleasure. And you and I shared a stage today in Clubhouse where we could still be in our house. However, it was a really impactful day for me to connect with other global leaders in there.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about, about who you are and how you got to where you are now.
So I definitely am a serial entrepreneur. And when I look at the beginning, all the way to when I was 6 years old, I've been in advertising and video and print ads and online ads after that. So I have a long history of connecting with clients and creating a client experience. And yes, right now I'm including NFTs in our client experience because not only is it fun, not only does it create a new way of connecting with them and offering even more value, but it's fun. It's exciting to be part of a trend that is happening right now. And being an early adopter allows us not only to learn what's happened so far, but to be part of the history of what's yet to come.
And a lot of people, I mean, we've heard of NFTs. Some of us know what fungible is, some don't. But could you give us like a quick rundown on what NFTs are and why you're excited about them?
Okay, well, NFTs for me personally are a point of access, almost like a ticket.
Right.
Okay. So one of my clients had 𝐴CE Comic-Con and in person had over 180 events and more than 5 million people attended. And each person who attended had a ticket. Originally, it was a physical ticket. And by the way, that was a unique one of one because on the ticket might have been their seat number for an event or their entry VIP number to be on a VIP list. So it still was a one of one because it was to them specifically. They purchased the right to go inside and have admission into the event or even to a VIP part of it where they met celebrities and had celebrities maybe sign their posters or take a picture with them. So each of those is a point of access. Now with an NFT, you can create a digital point of access. You can create it in digital form where now they can show that and it can get them in the front door. It could get them to the VIP line. It could get them, access to something early, maybe a pre-sale before it goes on sale for the public. Maybe it's an experience that only happens once a year and only 100 people get to go. And the first 100 that get to go in the door. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how people take these and incorporate them in their life, but also into their business and their community.
It's going to be fascinating. Yeah. And also keeping in line with the 1 Degree show. So you've had such a monumental career really. And, spanning 30, 40 years now. So what had been
30 years anyway.
30 years. Right. I apologize. Yeah. We're not in the 2030s yet. But it's so cool. And I think I wasn't kicking around the entrepreneur space at this time, but I think back in the 1990s, it probably, you weren't seeing as many women entrepreneurs. Entrepreneur wasn't as cool. Back then it was more like, oh, so you mean you don't have a job? That's what an entrepreneur is. So who have been some of the pivotal people in your life that have helped shape your career?
Wow. I've had so many amazing coaches in the moment. Some of them for just one time we met and they gave me an idea. Lisa Nichols would be someone that I had ongoing for many, many years. Lisa was known to be in the movie The Secret and taught a lot around mindset and choice of words and creating your future self and your best future self. And she was instrumental in me guiding myself towards a bigger and better future self. And now I'm arrived, and now Lisa's one of my friends. She's getting married. I'm actually going to her bachelorette party. And what I see is our relationship developed over time, and our relationship developed where we always wanted the best for one another. And now I'm learning the NFTs and applying it. And the first thing she says is, hey, do you want to help me do that? And I want to bring my audience along. I don't want anyone left behind. I want them to understand this language and why it's important. But she also is like, I don't understand it. So can you take me on the journey? And then let's show the journey to others. And if we show others that she can do it, then they can see what they can do for themselves. So we've actually created a 3-part challenge on Facebook that starts in January. And I have another entrepreneur that's helping me with it. And he's an attorney as well. So he understands the ramifications in the legal side, which is really important. But I have him and I kind of creating a hot seat effect and bringing Lisa Nichols in as our first case study of how can we create an NFT for her and her brand that, number 1, helps her audience come along. Number 2, gives extra value. And number 3, makes her feel like she's delivering more, but still just doing the same amount of work, not more work, but delivering more value. So we're cracking the code on that right now. You guys get to come on the journey with us, because the end of January, end of February, and end of March, we're going to have these challenges. We're going to invite people in, and we want them to not only see how we do it for Lisa, but even you, ELLAMAE, you come in and do yours, and now you get to share it with your audience how you did yours at the same time. I want to inspire all of us to join and not be left behind.
Oh my gosh. I love that's so, and I mean, when I think of NFTs, honestly, I think of, for sure, there's a portion of it that can be used as tickets, et cetera. But I think of the drawings that teenagers are flipping for $100 grand. And I'm just like, what? Like, how do you, like, you just make a JPEG and you put it on the blockchain? Is that how it works? But
there's different ways. I mean, some people are using photographs. Some people are using pieces of art. I took a picture of Lisa Nichols while we were in San Diego, and it was at sunset, and she just did this beautiful move just to enjoy the sunset. And I captured it, and then I turned it into like 5 different versions of an NFT. And that's why she's like, wait a second, it doesn't have to be hard. It just has to be clever and interesting enough that somebody else wants it either as a piece of art or a piece of access or some sort of collectible, or also showing authenticity, right? Sometimes it'll be an NFT will be used to say this thing is real, whether it's a speech or a handbag or a car or a title to a house, right? Any of those things could have authentication of this is real.
And this is something I find really cool about you in general is you've got, you're known in, at least in the circles that I run in, as the PR genius. You'll get people in front of, you'll have people publish, you'll get their business in front of people. You also have 2 veterinary clinics that you own and operate. And now you're into NFTs. What do you think is, I think a lot of, especially entrepreneurs, can get in this way of thinking where they're like, I don't know if I can shift because I'm known for this one thing. Like, how do I shift and not confuse my audience? But you've been able to do that very, very seamlessly. Like, you've literally jumped from country to pop to rock. And your audience just loves you along the way. So what do you think has been some of the key things that have allowed you to make these shifts and dig into this stuff?
Yeah, it's almost not really a shift. It's really a through line. The through line is I love marketing, and marketing is the driver for everything, right? And so in marketing, there's 13 different ways I connect with my clients. One might be social media, which includes YouTube and LinkedIn and all the way to TikTok, right? During the pandemic, I had my team doing TikTok videos and connecting differently and loving it, actually. They had a great time. So that's one way. Another way might be through a certification course. Another might be through a JV partnership, through an advertisement, through so many different ways that I could reach my client. Once you reach them and you bring them in and they're part of your now metaverse, right? What's the best way to connect even deeper? What's the best way to serve them, add value? So we're exploring new ways. I'll tell you what happened today.
Right.
even though I've been in this for a long time, since 2015, you know, I've been in cryptocurrency, having a wallet, participating. Today was the first day my team started taking cryptocurrency in my veterinary hospital in Oakland, California. And so I'm like, why did we wait so long to do it? But at the same time, let's not wait any longer. Let's do it immediately. And tomorrow we have a client and a friend who's coming in tomorrow to test the system. And what he's doing, he's getting his dog's shots, and he's going to pay his bill by Ethereum so he can feel what's it feel like as a client doing it. And then my team can test what's it feel like us doing it. And then what happens before, during, and after the transaction. And I'm sitting there going, wow, I've been teaching this for years, but today's the first day we put it in my practice. And I'm like, why'd we wait so long? And we're not waiting a minute longer. Let's put it that way. So we're not only putting it in place, we're setting up a testing for it. And then we're going to have a reason to show other companies to do the same thing for their company. And I was inspired by Cameron Herold and my friend Mike Koenigs, because a year ago, they took cryptocurrency as payment from a client. And then they realized such a huge gain, some of them 5 or 6 times more in value a year later, just by saying yes a year ago. So they said yes, they got paid in Bitcoin or Ethereum. And in that 1 year, you know, 10,000 turned into $60,000 in value for them. So all they did was say yes, accept it, and let it sit there. And now they're like, wait, I should pay attention to this more. Wait, should I pay attention? How much more?
I mean, that it's so cool. And I think it's becoming one of those things where you know, it's a little, it seems like it's here to stay. You know, everyone was super skeptical 5-10 years ago. What is this thing? Is it real? Is it, et cetera? Now it's like we can pretty confidently say this is here to stay. I hope, knock on wood.
We don't know what it's going to look like. We cannot predict it. We are not investment advisors. We're giving zero investment advice. What we're saying is we're noticing a trend. We're noticing there's a lot of people participating in this. Do I think that there's things that will fluctuate in price both up and down? Absolutely, on a daily and minute basis. It does it every day. And are there ways to protect yourself? Are there ways to be smart, to do your research, to read white papers, to listen to experts, to dig deep and do your own homework? Absolutely. That is what needs to be done. And not just follow a trend, but pay attention, do the homework, do your due diligence, talk to other people, invest in groups even so that you can learn together. We teach some families to create a competition, right? Where the parents and the kids each start with the same amount. Maybe it's $1,000, and then they have a competition and see who does what, and then how does it go, and who outperforms whom, you know, and make it fun, but learning along the way. So I have friends that are doing that. Some of them are even starting Thanksgiving and saying for the next year, let's have this competition, see what happens, and see who the kids will probably be teaching the parents a lot in the next 3 or 4 months for sure.
Probably. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I like the way you described that, in the sense that it's not like you've made I mean, you have made these shifts, but there's always been this through line of marketing. And that's always the passion of yours. And how do we get the message out in different ways and more effective ways, et cetera? What do you think inspired your love for marketing? Like, where did that come from?
I think I did have advertising and marketing in my blood since I was 6 years old. From 6 to 12, I did a series of commercials. I was in New York City, and we actually filmed in the Twin Towers. I had this great experience with Oscar Mayer hot dogs and Clairol shampoo and Wonder Bread and Lipton Ringo noodle soup, and just all of these brands that we got to do things with. Lipton Ringo noodle soup, we rolled down a hill in a tire. Like, that was so cool. I was 6 years old. I thought that was awesome. We also did this thing called the footsie. Everything had to do with circles. So yeah, that was creative, right? It taught us to be creative and get a message out there. And the message was, the Wizard of Oz came after us, by the way. Everyone heard about the Wizard of Oz, but it was after my first series of commercials, which included the rolling down the hill in a tire. I don't know if Hollywood would approve of that today, but back then, they let us do anything. Yeah. We did the hula hoop too. We did I could do the hula hoop for hours. I could just stand there and do the hula hoop and eat soup at the same time. So
good, like good stomach muscles then.
Yeah, actually, I just had was in me to be able to hula hoop for hours. So yeah, it was a fun time in my life. But what I learned now looking back is I've been in advertising and storytelling since I was a little kid. And it came through those, Western Electric hired me to do a picture of holding a light bulb and telling a story about, you know, how the lighting industry was changing and it was shifting and different things. So it was in Western Electric, you know, back in the 1970s. So I was learning that early on. And then what happened was later I realized what a love and natural ability I had at it. And then I could look back at the through line of, oh, this has been my whole life. I've actually been part of both sides of the camera since the beginning.
Oh, yeah. So how did it lead into your career as an entrepreneur?
Well, I started with Merrill Lynch right out of college. I was recruited by them because of my disc profile, which is a go-getter, right? It was a 99 on D and a 98 on I, which meant I love connecting with people. So I had this magic formula that they've discovered would be good as a stockbroker or an investment advisor, because I'm driven. I love creating money and opportunity and connections. And then having the I, where I have a natural ability of connecting with people, was supersonic, super sauce. And so I worked with two other brokers that had been in the industry for over 20 years. And the three of us just had a dynamic and phenomenal relationship and business. And then from there, when my husband was going through veterinary school, I ended up going back and getting a journalism and PR degree, because I was like, I want to learn the right way, not only in finance, but I knew that was my favorite part of the job, was the connecting and telling stories and teaching, right? So I would teach at universities and I would teach women how to invest. And I learned that I love those pieces of it. And the PR marketing, I was like, oh, well, my husband's in vet school and I'm in a college. We were at University of Florida. I'm like, it's one of the best journalism schools in the country. I'm like, why don't I take a journalism class and get a real degree in PR marketing? And that's where that got turned on.
Oh, that's so cool. And then out of college is when you started your first business?
I was in college. I was already starting businesses. Yes. While I was in college, I was working Merrill Lynch still at the time, and Bank of America became part of their organization. Ironically, I was at a Bank of America branch, still doing financial stuff for like 20 hours a week and going to school. So I created this little ecosystem of my own, but I liked it because I loved working and I loved creating inside the financial industry, but also going and getting a PR marketing degree. I started melding them together. So I would do my PR marketing inside Merrill Lynch.
Right.
And so Merrill Lynch became my first client. I moved here to San Francisco, and I started working with, different PR marketing clients. I had in 1998, Stanford Research Institute, that ended up being one of my areas where I had about 3 or 4 clients. So I was part of that, and it just blossomed from there. I love being part of the SRI community. So I just stayed in the e-learning forum and worked with, Autodesk and all these different companies building brands. And back then, Yelp was just coming on, and we were paying attention to online ways that you can get referrals. It was even before Facebook. And I saw all these budgets going from like $100 million budgets would be like advertising, TV, print magazines, stuff like that. All of a sudden, I see 100 million split between online and print. I'm like, whoa, 50 million we're putting towards online. And then Yelp was one of those first things we were looking at back then, and being in that sandbox. And so it grew from there, paying attention online. I could see when I jumped into Yelp and started paying attention, because I was seeing all these advertising dollars going towards getting audiences through them, and it worked. So I used it for my vet hospital and still do too. I have ads and connections through Yelp to meet new clients. And it's one of the most successful things I do in my business, because if I look on return on investment, it's like 20 times ROI.
Wow. And that's through Yelp for your veterinary hospital?
Yeah, because if I look at how much I spend per year to be part of their community and how much new clients I get out of it, I'm the big winner. Yeah. Even though it's a love-hate relationship, because sometimes people write reviews that might not make my team happy, because it's not always favorable when people write. Sometimes people motivated to write are the ones who want to complain. So my team sometimes feels hurt or not seen or upset.
Mm.
And the client has sometimes written things that are not flattering. However, as an advertiser and return on investment of new clients, we always come ahead. So I've learned to play in their sandbox as best as possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And who have been some of the pivotal people for you in the marketing world that have really either opened your eyes to new opportunities or helped shape the trajectory of your career?
So many. I mean, Joe Polish in I Love Marketing, listening to his podcast, being part of his ecosystem, learning from him firsthand, seeing how he cares about his client and client experience has been such an inspiration for me. And then also looking to him for what other mentors should I pay attention to? He brought Dan Sullivan to me. Dan Sullivan brought Peter Diamandis. So looking at them as mentors and peers, and each one of them gave me a deeper access to the other. And by success leaving clues, when Dan Sullivan's paying attention to Peter Diamandis, I'm realizing that's important for me as well. Oh, wait, if it's important for him to pay attention, then I should. So if that's where he's spending his time, I should consider doing the same thing. So I think what I say about Joe Polish is he has to know 1,000 people to tell you about the one that's special enough, right? So he has to distill it to who's the one or two you need to know. But he's known 1,000 people to figure out those one or two. And so I appreciate that he doesn't waste my time and energy. He just is like, boom, here's what you need. And almost always he's exactly right, and I appreciate that. He has that uncanny ability to connect people and to be selfless around it.
Oh, I totally agree. He was pivotal for me in my career and was incredibly gracious when I was doing some work with Genius. And I actually remember seeing you on a few Genius Network meetings. Yeah. If you don't know who we're talking about, it's Joe Polish. You can find him at joepolish.com, geniusnetwork.com. He's kind of legendary in the marketing world. But I remember seeing you on a few Genius Network meetings, and Joe was so incredibly kind where we were doing some work with Genius Recovery, and he brought me in on the meetings just so I had a feel for some different types of content, et cetera. But he really positioned it as if I was in Genius Network. Like he was like, I have a profile in the Genius Network membership, and that was the first big mastermind I was a part of. And he was just really kind and kind of endorsed me. And it completely changed my network, because all of a sudden I had access to this high level mastermind and these people. And I was just like, whoa. So I have such a big place in my heart for him. And I think a lot of people, I put a post up on Facebook recently that you responded to saying, hey, who's the one person that really changed your life? I want to talk to you about a podcast. There was like 8 Joe Polish comments in there, like Joe Polish, Joe Polish, Joe Polish, Joe Polish. So
yeah, he does this beautiful questionnaire, like to name 3 people really instrumental in your life and how they imprinted you in a positive way. And it could be someone alive or not alive. I think total is 3 alive and 3 not alive. So it's 6 total. And so many times I've seen people's list of 6 total, and I see Joe Polish on their list. So in all different settings, not just at a Genius meeting. It just shows, his impact. So I'm excited that we share that, and that he elevated both of us, not only as leaders, but as women leaders too, that he really likes to elevate everybody. And because we're in a lot of boys networks together, Joe and I, where I'm one of just a few women in the room, and he still is conscious about, lifting everybody. So that's cool. And then when I look at that benefit from him, I pay attention to who he pays attention to. Like he pays attention to Dean Jackson. So I'm like, okay, I got to listen to I Love Marketing. And then who's this Dean Jackson over the years? And like, wow, I get a lot of really great information from him. And so I said, success leads clues. It's like, oh, and then who else is paying attention? Oh, well, Jeff Walker, and because of Jeff, I know Joe actually. So I'm grateful to Brendan Bashar brought me Jeff Walker. Jeff Walker brought me Joe Polish. And I'm like, well, that's the order. And by the way, Brendan Bashar brought me JJ Virgin too, who happens to be someone I love and adore and see as an incredible leader and somebody who's created products and a brand and just stands in great, she's the best light of motherhood ever too. She's such a great example of how to love and adore your kid no matter what. And so, yeah, this whole group, group of marketers, but also group of global leaders, it feels so good. And now I'm looking at, with NFTs, how can I honor them? When I look at Lisa Nichols or JJ Virgin, what can I do to help them not only be more successful, but also seen as savvy, and also taking their group with them and being that. So that's kind of where I am right now, is this place of creation and co-creation, right? We're in co-creation together. And I think that's what NFTs are doing for me, is they're having me put that light on and that hat on how to be more of a co-creator of value, and even spreading joy and happiness somehow. My team already made Share Happiness Now cards that could be done in NFTs. So I love that my team's coming with me on this too.
And what's the, just like, because again, I'm pretty new to NFTs, but what's the difference between Let's Share Happiness cards and NFTs? And I mean, I get that there's obviously a big difference. Or if you were to mail me that card, because obviously as an NFT, it's digital. I get that.
Right. And in there, it could be just that one piece of picture that you have a one-of-one, and you have the rights, whatever the rights are that I say go with it, including reproducing it. But it also could be on the first of every month, I have a surprise in there. So when you open it, it's a new surprise. Like there's all these things.
Cool.
Digital, I now can have it live on with other ideas later, or access. It could say every year, one time a year, you can turn that in and get a front row seat wherever I am. Or if we're whatever, you could put, it's endless to the things you want to put on there. Yeah, and you create a smart contract, and in the smart contract, it can have, these are the terms of it, and this is where it can evolve to. Yep.
Oh, cool. Okay, now I'm starting to get it. I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. All right.
The access part. So if we're thinking about Comic-Con, if we're thinking about what 𝐤𝐬𝐲 is doing now, it might be early access for what he's doing for Hero Maker Studios. Like the first ones might be, you'll be on the inner circle where we'll unveil it for you first. So that's early access. Could be VIP access, that you have a Zoom meeting with 𝐤𝐬𝐲 as he unveils it, and you get to talk to him about all the things he was thinking or he learned. Or it could also be that you spend an hour with one of his attorneys and learn how to do this for your company. Like there could be access to anything that's like a VIP or experience. And then there could be exclusive access where you have dinner with him and his family. I don't know. It could be where you have dinner with him and one of the characters in Hong Kong. It could be whatever you want. It could be exclusive access. So now you can build anything you want in the smart contract, and I could sell it to you for $1,000, but you could sell it to someone else for $2,000. And I could build in the smart contract. If it's ever resold, I get paid again, and royalties come in. So now some of the NFTs that are out there, like Tom Billio ones, he built in every time it's resold, he gets 5%. Well, if every time it's resold and he gets 5% and it's on its second or third selling, then he's got revenue streams coming in on a regular basis.
Oh, okay. So now I'm like kind of getting it. I feel like I feel like I've definitely YouTubed NFTs and Googled it a little bit, but I feel like the way that you explained it, like I don't see it streamlined, explained at very ready access, where I'm seeing a bunch of JPEGs, I'm seeing et cetera. And I'm sort of like, okay, so like, how does this work? But you explained it really, really well. Yeah.
Well, if you look at the creme de la creme right now, a lot of us, I would even say, is watching Gary Vaynerchuk, watching Gary V and Friends. Now, he launched Gary V and Friends. He's earned more than $90 million so far this year, mostly in the last few months, on his Gary V and Friends. Some have been resold. One was an elephant called the Empathy Elephant, and it sold for $412,000. You didn't just get the art. What you got is you sit front row at his event for the next 3 years. You're front row and center at Gary V's VCon, whatever his event is. Now you have access to him. He knows those are his people. He knows those are the ones that paid. They're in the front row. They secured that. Was it worth it? $412,000? It might be. Maybe they get in front of him and they can pitch a product or an idea that he wouldn't have known about, that they could be partners on and be happy and make millions of dollars together. I don't know what could happen, but now they have access in a way they didn't before. And to them, if they bought it in ETH, which is Ethereum, their cost basis is based on when they bought their ETH. If they bought it 3 years ago, it might have only cost them $20 to do that. If they bought it today, it might cost them, $412,000. That was the value that day if someone bought it that day. But you could have bought it years ago where it was only $20,000 to you, and it's worth it. So it matters on when you bought the ETH as to what your cost is.
So fascinating. It's such a cool world. Yeah.
It is. It's good for us to learn, and it's good for it to be transparent. These things live on the blockchain and they're transparent. Whatever's in the contract and the smart contract is transparent. Like it lives on, it's can be proven that it's true. And a lot of why people like it is it's transparent and
transparent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've heard Gary Vee talk about that where he said, you know, in the past I'd mentioned, you know, baseball cards and people would say, oh, you're only talking about that because you're trying to sell your limited edition, whatever. And he's like, I wasn't selling it. But what I love about NFTs is everything is completely, you see everything that happens, which is the way the blockchain works in general, correct? Like every transaction you can see.
Yes.
Yeah. Very cool. You mentioned earlier with 𝐤𝐤 how you love 𝐤𝐤 and she's such a good mom. I know you're a mom, your daughter adores you, your daughter's mentor. How do you find
That's what she would do? I love you.
I always see your guys' videos on Instagram and I'm like, man, that's so cute. How do you find it is with balance? Because I mean, you've obviously had businesses for just as long as you've been a mom. How do you find it is with balancing entrepreneurship and motherhood?
Well, she trumps everything. She's more important than anything. The other night I was at a meeting and I left early and flew home early to surprise her because all I wanted to do is get home and spend time with her. Now, this is her senior year, so there's a balance of when can I be home and not. So I have to, just like with pets, the number one thing is when you're home, you're really present and they're the most important thing in the world, and be and show up the best you can. So when I'm here, last night we fell asleep watching TikTok videos together. She was actually doing some homework and I was just laying and I fell asleep in her bed, and she just loved that I was hanging out with her, you know, and nothing's more important than that connection with her right now. And just watching how dedicated she is to what she's doing and being a piece of that. And it just makes me sing and makes me happy. It's my favorite thing. My favorite thing to do is be her mom. So whenever I get the opportunity to, it's where I want to be.
What do you think the key, because a lot of people have teenage daughters and they're like, that's not what it's like. What do you think the key is there? Do you think you guys just click, or do you think?
Well, no, it's always, you know, I think I just love her so much and she knows I do, no matter what. Like even today, if you look in our messages, it says, today's the happiest day. I love my life, to each other. She wrote it to me. I wrote it to her. And she wrote, today's the happiest day. I love you. And then a half hour later, she wrote, and I love my life. I think she was waiting to see if I noticed, but of course I noticed. And but every day we start off with just in gratitude for each other and our relationship, and we grow together, and she can be anyone she chooses to be. I just want to support her to be her best self. So I don't have judgment around it. I actually have let her make some really big choices, including what school she goes to. Wow. I picked a different high school for her than she did, and she chose it, so she lives with it. And it's not what I would have chosen or picked. And I think it's surprising, actually. She picked a Catholic high school, and it's a college prep school. And I'm like, it's not what I expected. But I did pick a college prep school. It just was a different one. And every once in a while, I think like how different our life is that she picked her school. And, but I empower her to build her best future self. And I reflect back to her my choices, but they're not demands. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think also my friend taught me something a long time ago. My friend Marta Maria said, anytime you're mothering your daughter, imagine you at the same age sitting right next to her and remother yourself. And Abby was about 4 years old when she told me that. So a lot of times whenever I was showing up as mom to Abby, I would imagine me next to her and love myself the same way or more, you know, like even sometimes Abby would say she didn't want something and I'd be like, well, I'd want that. And here's why, you know, like I just changed my way of thinking. Like I thought of myself as 6-year-old, what would I do? 8-year-old, what would I do? And sometimes I shared it with Abby, and sometimes I just let Abby make the choice and I went along with her. But remothering myself, I think, allowed me to erase stories that were not empowering and instead replace it with stories that made me feel better, or were Abby's stories now that we could both, you know, relish in together. So I think being intentional, right? I met what they used to call as the most interesting man in the world. It was the Dos Equis guy from the Dos Equis commercial. And I was with Alex Mendoza, and we were at Harvard. We were both speaking, and he was speaking the same day. And most interesting man in the world. What's the question you ask him? Is like, Well, what makes you the most interesting man in the world? Like, I want to know his perspective of why he thinks he is. And he said, to be interested. He said, that's what makes you most interesting, is to be interested. I think even you today being interested in asking questions, that's what's engaging, is like just being interested. I want to learn a little more. What could I learn from this? And I think that's what we all get from this. And me as a mom is I'm interested in her, and I want her to be interested in me. And I'm just transparent as much as I can with the learning lessons and the reality. And sometimes she's like, Mom, you make it look so easy. And I'll say, okay, let me show you what really went into this. Let's be transparent here. And she can see the commitment. And I think through my travel and through my teaching, that's what she's seeing right now. She's like, oh, I see the commitment. You believe in this so much. You're making the commitment, not at 99%, but at 100%. And still making Abby feel important and being there for her, right? So I do know next year, once she goes to college, I'll probably have more time to do this. So I probably will say less yeses in first and second quarter next year, unless they're on Zoom like this, right? I probably will say less because I want to be here with her physically. So if people don't see me out there for a little while, that's why.
No, that's I mean, like, where do you find, I mean, I guess you're just on purpose, so you're rocking with it, but do you ever find you get tired? Like, I like follow you on social, right? And you are always on a plane. You're always jumping around. If you're not, you're with your family. Where do you find your energy from?
I know I am a well of energy. I definitely, people are like, are you an Energizer bunny? Do you ever sleep? Is the number one question people ask me. My Oura ring says I sleep generally 7 to 8 hours. Yeah. Somewhere after 7, before 8, sometimes 8 hours, 15 minutes, sometimes 9 hours. It just depends if I have that much space. Today, I didn't even wake up until 8 a.m. and I still, you know, I had a great morning. I didn't set the alarm. I just got up and I feel really refreshed and energized. And I think so much is mindset. My brain is just wired towards seeing the good and finding the good. And I think sometimes that's why I have more energy, is because I'm energized by seeing the good and finding the good. So if my brain sees it and wants it and then sees it, then I feel like I won something and it energizes me even more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like it's science, right? There's a reticular activating system in your brain. It's like when you're thinking of buying a new red Lexus and all of a sudden all you see are red Lexuses when you never would have noticed them before. Like when we start to look for things, we find them.
Right.
And so I think that's a great point, is seeing the good and find what's the good, right?
That's what's been really grateful. That's what's been great about Abby, is because I'm always looking for the good. So even if she's having a tough time and down on herself for something, a lot of times I'll automatically see something really good and be able to connect with her there and start there for the lift, right? So my brain does want to go there. However, I am human. It doesn't always. Sometimes I have to overcome obstacles. However, that contrast allows me to see, wait, I really rather be in that other space. It's so much more fun to be in that space. So let me get back there as fast as possible.
Oh my gosh, of course. I love that. All right. So where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Well, for crypto and stuff, we have the goasklee.com. Everything's up there. There's goasklee.com/connect. And that is putting people in our wait list for our next classes. I told you we're doing the 3 challenges in the spring. So we definitely want to invite all of you guys to come on the challenges and learn with us. How do you create your first NFT? Where do you put it? How do you design it? How do you sell it? How do you deliver it, right? All of the steps. So everyone will be able to do that along with us. We're going to make that a challenge on Facebook. And at the end, and we'll have like little homework assignments each night. We already started designing it so that it's step by step what to do. And then at the end, we'll invite people if they want to go on a deeper dive and really launch something that is like a moneymaker inside their business, or a way of creating a better client experience. We're going to have the Done With You campaigns that we do over 12 weeks, where we'll take people on the course, on the road with us on how to do it. In the beginning, we'll show how we do it for people like Lisa Nichols. And then over time, we'll unveil it for everyone else too. It's going to be super fun. I think this gives us all an opportunity to be entrepreneurs together. Every generation, every age group. The myfirstsale.com group is, 10, 11, 12-year-old entrepreneurs. This is going to be great for them.
Yeah.
It's going to be great for teens. It's going to be great for 20s, 30s. I'm bringing my friends with me, and it makes me happy that people in their 50s are like, okay, I don't know what this is, but I'm going to jump in and I'm going to learn. So no one will be left behind. We'll bring everyone with us.
Oh my God, that's so cool. All right, so goasklee.com. You can learn more about that. All of her socials are linked there as well. I highly recommend you follow along. She's a very entertaining life. She's always in a different city. It's fun to watch. And let's do a few rapid fire questions just because I'm curious. And I 100% stole these from Tim Ferriss. So what is the best thing you bought lately that is under $100?
Let's see. What have I bought lately? Probably a bottle of tequila would be my first thought.
There we go. I love tequila.
I was in Mexico and I bought them for gifts for people, but no matter who got them, they were really happy to get them.
I love that. Awesome. What is the book that you gift the most often?
It's whatever Dan Sullivan is doing next, but right now it's blockchain because I want people to understand this. So right now I'm giving these away like crazy to people that are getting in, and I'm looking for ways when people are in our membership to make sure they get it. And a lot of it is just to tell the terminology so we're all speaking the same language.
Totally. And last one, if you could have dinner with anybody, dead or alive, real or fictional, who would it be and why?
God, there's so many. It is hard to just pick one for sure. Right now, God. Actually, Michelle Obama. We came very close to having dinner with her. We had an April 1st last year and April 2nd. We had front row tickets to see Michelle Obama. My daughter was going with me. And we had just seen her in Brooklyn with Oprah, but we didn't get one-on-one time with her, which we would have on April 1st and April 2nd. And because of COVID, it got shut down. So we still have the tickets if it ever happens. But I will say my daughter loves Michelle Obama and just looks up to her so much for so many reasons. As a mom is one of them. And she's so funny. And so, yeah, I think it would be right now to spend time with her. And then also to talk to her, what's it feel like before, during, and after the White House, before, during, and after having the #1 bestseller book of all time, like so many milestones that she has, and being a mom. Like, yeah, I think that would be who it would be right now.
I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure. Everybody, thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.
This broadcast is brought to you by WINJECT Studios. We are an all-in-one educational platform for podcasters that revolutionizes how hosts leverage content to increase engagement with listeners, downloads, and income. We come together to focus on community, collaboration, and collective impact. For more information on how you can interact directly with our hosts, access exclusive live content with offers you can't get anywhere else from our official partners, join our purpose-driven community by visiting www.winject.com. If you're ready to build a career doing what you love, then we're ready to see you there.